Welcome to Asian Book Club, where we highlight Asian and Asian American authors. We are your hosts,
Jamae and Sabangan.
And I'm Stephen Park. And today we bring you our special episode of Did You Eat Yet? And in this episode, we're going to do a little review. We're going to look at the books that we've read, at least the last 5 of them, and we're going to do a little pairing. We are starting to change up our format a little bit. It's a little bit for ourselves, but it's also to try to make sure we're kind of listening to our audience and doing things that may seem more fun and accessible with this podcast.
For sure.
And so for this podcast, we're going to be doing a Did You Eat Yet podcast with one of us looking at one of the books and the other person focusing on another one. So it's going to be a little bit more of a back and forth.
Right. So it's us giving you a little review if you didn't read the book so that you're able to figure out if you do want to go back and actually pick it up.
Yeah, exactly. So for the books that we did read, we started in December with The Holiday Switch by Marcelo. We've also read Rich AF by Vivan 2, Where I Belong by Soojin Lee and Linda Yoon. We also read The Membranes by Ta-Wei, and most recently we read The Moon That Turns You Back by Hala Alyan. So let's start off with our first book of this Did You Eat Yet episode. So, Jamae, if you can tell us a little bit about the Holiday Switch, and for this theme, we are going to go with Charcuterie board.
Yes.
So, what would represent the Holiday Switch on a charcuterie board for you?
For me, the Holiday Switch would be a nice strawberry jam. Very ooey, gooey, slightly sweet, and kind of tart.
Yeah. So, tell us a little bit about why you made that choice, and give us a little review on what the book was.
The book is a holiday-themed young adult romance where the trope is enemies to lovers. It's between these two teens who are co-workers at this hotel, essentially, and they don't really get along. Not only do they not get along, but they're also going through these changes among themselves and trying to figure out who they are.
And so there's a lot of playfulness between the two characters. There's a lot of push and pull. It's a very lighthearted, fun read for something you can do during the wintertime.
Exactly. And what's interesting is that they both have secrets that they have to keep for each other.
Right. So why did this book remind you of Strawberry Jam?
Because there is the sweetness of being together and trying to discover their relationship with each other and like the giggleness of being in love for the first time. But there's also that tartness of trying to figure out what it is that they need to do in order to keep their secrets or to reveal that secret to whomever it was that they needed to share it with, which was essentially their families.
Right. So that was The Holiday Switch by Marcelo. The second book we read was kind of our New Year's turnaround, and that was Rich AF by Vivan 2. So during a period where we're thinking about money more, especially from Asian communities, we're doing all these preparatory things to give us a good year and good luck. We read Rich AF by Vivan 2. For those that don't know, Vivan 2 is an influencer, and in this book we get a lot of that. Rich AF is a more exciting way to start managing your money. A book that explains the intricacies of credit scores, 401ks, and other complex money topics in a way that's easier to comprehend. So Vivan 2 is thrilling and playful, which may encourage a younger generation of moneymakers to start investing in their future. And especially at this point with the stock markets the way that they are, it's not the worst thing to start figuring out what to do with your money.
For sure. And although it is geared toward a younger generation, anyone who's our age, which is like mid-30s, could also benefit from this book.
Yeah, and people that even start investing later in life for whatever reason, it's a good way to understand what's happening with your money. So for my food choice for this charcuterie board, I went with fried chicken and caviar because this seems to be this new trendy thing that's happening for people with either the means or the willingness to kind of spend out of their budget. And budget is an important part of this book. It's knowing what you can do. And if you really feel fancy, then maybe this fried chicken and caviar can be something that you can utilize as a successful treat.
For sure. And going off of this New Year turnaround, we moved into Where I Belong by Soojin Lee, LMFT, and Linda Yoon, LCSW. In this book, we learned and addressed the unique trauma that Asian and Asian American communities face and focus on healing that trauma and embracing Asian American identity. This book is written by two therapists, an LMFT, which is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and an LCSW, which is a licensed counselor and social worker. What I appreciate about this book is not only do they talk about the trauma, but they also talk about how we can get through it and how we can celebrate our identities at the end.
Yeah, and they give you a lot of tools to work on. There are a lot of worksheets in the book that can help you grow. I even recently started with a new therapist, and she was like, "Hey, do you know box breathing?" And I was like, "Yeah, I know box breathing." And it's because of this book. It was, I think, our second grounding exercise or somewhere earlier in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of these tools were ones that were provided by Sujin and Linda.
Right. And we also had the opportunity to interview these two authors, and it was a way to get us to see more about the book and learn more about where their direction came from.
Yeah. And so what are you adding to our charcuterie board with this book?
I'm adding buttery crackers. They're salty, but they're fatty, and they also have that little crunch. So it has everything that makes a charcuterie board tasty. It kind of brings all the food together.
Yeah, and you're talking about like the round ones, right?
Yes, the round ones with the ridges.
Yeah. And it's kind of like the base of building a lot of things, whether you want to add cheese to it or jam. So it kind of becomes the foundation.
Right, or even adding any meats or meat alternatives.
Right. So we kind of moved on from there and went a little deeper dive. This was a book recommendation that we had gotten, and one that I think both Jamae and I were very happy to have read because I don't think either of us are pulling this off the shelf just by ourselves.
Right.
And this one was The Membranes by Ta-Wei. So in The Membranes, it is a very complex story that delves into a dystopian society that struggles with issues surrounding environmental changes, dehumanization, and corporate overgrowth. The story also provides a heartwarming narrative of mother and daughter and a base layer of queer characters that round out this sci-fi novel. It's a great read that will keep you on your toes. It'll have you turning left and right without really understanding that you're actually moving forward.
Right. And it's a pretty short read too. It's not very heavy. It's very straightforward. And it does have a lot of twists and turns that leave you reeling.
Yeah. And so for this book, The Membranes, I wanted to add to our charcuterie board something that was like more gastronomy, something that was more futuristic. So the item wasn't really an item that I think is in our realm. So the closest item I could think of was like a popping boba, but it had to be peach because the character's name was Momo and was named after a peach within the book. So I was thinking of like this airy kind of encasing to this jelly that was peach made. So it had like a strong peach flavor that was very natural.
Totally.
So at least that's what I was thinking of for adding on.
Nice. And from the sci-fi novel, we moved into a poetry collection, The Moon That Turns You Back by Hala Alyan. This poetry collection traces the fragmentation of memory, archive, and family in the face of displacement. And Hala Alyan is a well-known author of 4 poetry collections alongside 2 fiction pieces that have garnered several awards over the years. What I appreciated about this poetry collection is that it was very raw and also universal, even though it was super personal. It made it so that we can see through various imagery, but also actual visuals like the interactive fiction and the coding and the charting. It showed different ways that poetry can be produced in this modern contemporary world.
Right. And I wanted to add a little addendum of how complex this can be for people that aren't really adept at poetry. It's not to scare you away from the book, but it's much more just saying like, if you read it and it doesn't really feel like everything makes sense, then you're probably in the exact space that I was. So it doesn't make it so that you're any less adept at reading this book. It's just some of the stories and the topics and the way it's written is very complex. So it's kind of going from stage 0 to stage 10 really quickly.
For sure. And I would suggest for everyone, whether it was a difficult read or a read that you were able to catch on really quickly, I suggest that you read the collection multiple times.
Yeah. So what did you add to our charcuterie board for The Moon That Turns You Back?
For The Moon That Turns You Back, I'm adding a slice of brie. It's grainy, but also a little sour, but very flavorful too. So it's hard to pinpoint the flavors of brie without having tasted it before.
Grainy? Are you sure you're thinking about brie? Because brie's creamy and it's melty and it shouldn't be tart.
Okay, so maybe I'm thinking of blue cheese.
Yes, blue cheese would be tart. It's fermented by the whatever turns it blue and it's
Got it.
crumbly.
For sure. Yes, I think yes. I love cheese and cheese is my deal, but I forget sometimes.
Hmm.
So, very much like blue cheese, this collection might be a little bit difficult to pinpoint the flavor, but it's also one that with time and repetition, you'll get the overall appreciation for the food and essentially for this book.
Yeah. And honestly, like, if we think about what we have on our little charcuterie board, we have the strawberry jam, we have fried chicken and caviar, we have the crackers, we have the jelly peach pearls, we have now this blue cheese that kind of can connect all the pieces. Like, blue cheese and sweet go very well together,
Mm-hmm.
blue cheese and fried chicken go really well together. So I feel like that encompassed and kind of brought everything together.
Absolutely.
So that is going to be our Did You Eat Yet episode. The following ones are going to be more like this. It's going to be much more summarization so that if you don't feel like you have the time to go through our other listens, at least you can go through these recommendations and figure out which books might fit for you just based off of our past knowledge more than our pre-knowledge.
Absolutely.
Although this is going to be a change to this episode, we're also going to be making changes to the podcast in other ways.
Right. We're going to be reading the books as a whole and then summarizing and talking about what we experienced from the book 3 weeks later. So even though last episode we did share our first read, we're actually going to be reading the whole book of Rebel Skies by Anne Lin.
Yeah, and the formatting is going to be different. We're no longer going to be doing those broken up sections, but we will talk about still the feel and how we're moving through the book. So I think it's still going to be a very comprehensive way to look at it. The part about working with Asian and Asian American specific authors will never change. That is kind of the core and fundamental value of why Jamae and I did this. What we will also do for people that do like following and listening is me and Jamae will also now start to read books separately. So every now and then you might see a book pop up, whether it's for the purpose of an author reaching out to us to do an earlier read, or it's a book that we've read just on our own and we can kind of discuss the topics of something that maybe I read and Jamae didn't, or maybe something that Jamae's read in the past that now I have read. So this will allow me to read sequels of books that I've been dying to read that we just haven't really had the time to get to.
Totally.
So just different formatting, still the same Asian and Asian American podcast.
Absolutely.
So for people that do want to join in and make recommendations for us to read something, if you feel like this is just too much of a format change for you, I would love to hear your opinions. If you have any thoughts on how you think we can make the podcast better, feel free to reach out to us, and they can do so by
emailing us at asianbookclubpod@gmail.com, or you can message us through Instagram at asianbookclubpod.
We also have our website, which is asianbookclubpod.com, where we have books that we've read in the past, books that we recommend, and books that we plan to read in the future.
And a great way to support us is to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast.
Otherwise, make sure to be happy, be healthy, and read a book.
Ingat. Bye.